Hello and welcome to another annotated game by me, Zenchess. This was played on Lichess in the 15 minutes 5 second increment on lichess.org. And my opponent was Blue Emerald and he was rated 2243, and I am Zenchess rated 2272. So I'm just going to talk about what I was thinking during the game and something important that I learned about the game afterwards when analyzing with an engine. So my opponent started with pawn to e4, and I played pawn to c5. And he played knight to f3, and I played pawn to d6. He broke in the center with pawn to d4. I captured, he captured with a knight. And I played knight f6, attacking his e4 pawn. He defended it with knight c3. Standard Sicilian moves. And now we could go into various Sicilians like the just all sorts of stuff. Najdorf, Dragon, Classical. There's a ton of variations in the Sicilian, but I go for the Najdorf. And he played pawn to f3. So when he plays pawn to f3, he's setting up the English attack, which saw a lot of popularity in the 90s and kind of revolutionized White's game against the Najdorf and other Sicilians. So White's basic plan is to play bishop e3 and probably queen d2, castle queenside, and then attack with pawn to g4, maybe pawn to g5, kicking this knight out. And usually what will happen is black will castle kingside, white will castle queenside, and we'll have a dangerous tactical game. So he played f3 and I played e5. So we're still in theory, of course, and you may wonder why e5 could be a good move. Well, let's just move for white here. Knight b3 is what he played. And you may think that this square on d5 looks very weak now. He's attacking it with this knight. And I have this backwards d6 pawn, which cannot be protected by the other pawn on e5 here. So it is true that there is some danger in, hold on one second. There's some danger that black could lose control of the d5 square. So if white's able to occupy that square and occupy it with a minor piece like a knight or bishop, he could get a sizable advantage. But basically the reason I play the Najdorf is that black's going to fight for control of the square. And later on, if black can get in the pawn break d6 to d5, he's going to have a very nice position because he's going to have the only center pawn. So he's going to have more space in the center. And the piece that recaptures on d5, probably a knight or whatever, is going to be well placed centrally. So that's why I like the Najdorf, knight b3, and I played h5, I'm pretty sure, yeah, h5. And so h5 was a system brought to popularity by Topalov, and it basically just stops white's idea of g4, at least temporarily. And, you know, if I didn't play that, let's say I played something like bishop b6, bishop e3, knight bd7, queen d2. I'll just make some moves here. These may not be the actual theory. I prefer to play h5 because now white is going to play g4, and I really don't like the fact that white can destabilize her knight with g5. You can also go for like h4, h5, g5, and just rip open the king side with these advanced pawns. So that's why I played h5, and I've studied this. And David Figueredo's book is the latest book I've gotten on the Najdorf, and I think it's pretty good. So anyways, I played h5, he played bishop e3. And this just develops a piece to a fairly useful square. You can see this diagonal is actually pretty important. The b6 square in particular could become fairly weak, and in combination with a knight on d5 or a knight on a4 could lead to occupation by white. I played bishop e6, and that just fights for control of d5 basically. Sorry. And he played queen d2. And white's purpose with this move is just simply completing development and getting ready to castle queenside. And then he's planning on opening up the king side anyways, with moves like pawn to h3, pawn to g4, pawn to h4. And he may bring a rook to g1, but basically the battle lines have been drawn. White's going to castle queenside, and black is going to castle kingside. And white's going to throw his pawns at black and open up lines, get his rooks on the open files, and black is going to do the same. He's going to push on the queen side. He's going to open up as much lines and break up the white queen side as much as possible. So I'm pretty sure I played knight b7. Let me check out knight b7. And this just develops another piece. Controls b6. The knight often will go to b6, but also it could go to c5. And it prepares the rook to come to c8, which is very important. You can see that black has the half-open c file, which is typical for the Sicilian because you've traded the c pawn. And of course, white has the half-open d file. But when you have a half-open file on your side, you generally want to put a rook on that file just to add pressure down the file, and the rook becomes active. So he played bishop e2, and that's a developing move. Other options are to go to d3. And I played rook c8. And believe it or not, we're still in theory. There are some different variations here, but we're still in one of the main lines. White played h3. And basically what I learned from my Najdorf book is anytime white goes for h3 without g3 already involved, you play h4. And this just slows white down from playing g4. Now, white could potentially play g3 anyways and open the g file, but you slow him down, and sometimes you'll bring this knight to h5 and just protect that g3 pawn. So it becomes difficult for white to make progress. So I played h4, white castled. And I played bishop e7. Now I want to play b5. But I've got to take time and develop all my pieces before I start undertaking anything serious on the queen side. So bishop e7, standard move here. Well, I played king b1, and this is just a useful move. It gets off the open file from black's rook. And the a2 pawn is potentially weak because my bishop is putting some pressure on that. So with the king on b1, the king's just more safe, and it just defends all the queenside pawns a little easier. So I played b5. With this queenside expansion, there's a couple different ways you could play it. You could play b4 and force white to either hop to a4 or d5. If he goes to d5, you can consider also trying to get the a pawn up and just breaking everything open. Of course not in this position because b5 would drop. But if he goes to let's see here, b5. I'll just make a non-move for white. If he goes to a4, this knight on a4 is not very safe. So if there's any way you can attack that knight, it could very easily be lost. It has no retreat square. It can't go to c3 or b2. And he can't go forward either because I've got that square under control with my queen and knight. So he has to be very careful about playing knight a4. And it's not that I would play b4 right away. Just the threat of playing b4 gives me a lot of options. So let's get back to the game. Okay, so white played f4. And this is actually pretty common, and I've seen this before in my opening books. White wants to play f5. And force black to go to c4. And I've actually forgotten what the main drawback of this for black is. I know there's some reason that black plays bishop c4 early to get his bishop off of v6. But I don't quite remember why, and I can't figure it out because knight a5 doesn't seem to be a threat. But I'm pretty sure I remember some reason why black does play bishop c4 usually, unprovoked. So anyways, I played queen c7. And this just develops the queen here. The queen can potentially recapture on c4 if a piece is exchanged. It can go to b7 to support b4. It's just a good square for the queen. Develops the queen, kind of waits to see what white's going to do. So he played rook and h to e1. And I played bishop c4. And like I said, I didn't really quite remember why this move was necessary, or even if it was necessary. But I knew it was a common idea. I remembered it. And so I just played it. Sometimes I do that in openings. I just remember something. I don't remember exactly why it is. And I know that's a bad habit, of course. But if you know that bishop c4 is the move to play, you can't really go wrong playing it. So he played bishop f3. And somehow I don't think this is theory at this point. It's kind of a logical move because it supports the center, supports the e-pawn, supports d5. But I'm pretty sure that it's not the theoretical move here. So I played b4. And what I'm trying to do is force white to play knight d5 or knight a4. If he plays knight a4, my plan was to play bishop b5, targeting this knight. And then the only way I saw in the game that he could defend it was queen takes b4. And then my plan was to play d5, uncovering this attack against the queen. And that's all I saw. I didn't really calculate this completion, but I figured I'd have something here. And, you know, I have threats on the e-pawn. Maybe I can play d4. Not sure if the queen can actually keep the defense of this knight, so the only chance white would have is he could somehow block. And I didn't calculate that, but I kind of had a feeling that he wouldn't be able to. So that leaves white with either knight e2 or knight d5, and knight d5 is much more active. So I was thinking here before I played before, what do I want to take the knight with? Clearly I have to take because he's attacking my queen and my bishop. And if he takes that bishop, the d6 pawn is going to be very vulnerable. So at first I thought I can take with the bishop. He captures back. And I thought this would be okay. I can follow up with a5, push a4, and try to rip open the queen side. And I wasn't too worried about a capture on e5 because I can just take back with the knight. Then my knight can hop into c4 and do massive damage. But I came to the decision to play knight takes d5 with the logic that my bishop on c4 is actually putting more pressure on his queen side. So I'm better off trading the knight than the bishop because the bishop is doing actual damage. So my plan here is to play a5, a4, and maybe b3 and just use this bishop to threaten him. So I think that's what happened in the game. Yeah, that's what happened in the game. And after he takes d5, I played a5. So at some point here, I actually could have been worse. And it was basically due to a misunderstanding I had. Let me see if I can find that analysis real quick. So I played a5, and here he played queen f2. It's just semi-logical. It kind of protects his diagonal and transfers the queen to the king side, even though it can't really do a whole lot of damage, although he could play g3 and maybe the queen could do some damage on g7. But instead of queen f2, if he simply captured on e5, one second here, I'm looking up the analysis. Pretty sure it involved bishop d4 and sacrificing the exchange, but let me just find this analysis here. Knight takes e5. Okay, so knight takes c5 is what my plan was if he did this, and I felt like I was perfectly safe. But actually, if he plays bishop d4, my plan was basically bishop f6, and I thought I was perfectly safe. But he has bishop takes, rook takes, and he's breaking through in the center, pushing this pawn. And now this pawn gains a tempo on my queen and can check on d7, winning the rook. So I'll lose a lot of material and position. So basically the moral of that story is if you're not finished developing, develop first before you try some ambitious activities. Really, the principle is that you should have a secure position before you attack. And so castling is a better move, and then I can consider b4. So there's no need to rush. So what happened in the game was b4, knight d5, knight takes, e takes, a5, queen f2. And now my plan is kind of coming to fruition because white's got this knight on b3, which can be hit by my a pawn, so I can gain an important tempo in pushing my pawns and opening up the queen side. And honestly, the game just kind of plays itself at this point. I played a4. He played knight d2. Um, and I played b3, and I thought I was winning at this point, but apparently, according to the Lichess engine, I'm not winning. It's just equal. But my basic philosophy with this move was, first of all, I'm adding pressure to a2 and c2. And there could be a lot of lines where I sack a bishop, take on c2, and go for play on the a file, or push a3, or basically just any kind of destructive move against the white king. If he were to take on a3 twice, or b3 twice, I saw here that I could, he was basically hosed because the a file is open, and the c file is open, so he really has nowhere to hide. So I saw that I had bishop d3 and rook a8, and that's what happened in the game. If he took this way, even if we got this, I'd be happy with this. You know, I have like bishop d3, king a1, bishop c2, and it feels to me that white's going to be in big trouble. One idea I have is I can trade this pawn at the right moment and play bishop f6 and get pressure down this diagonal. Also, a rook on the a file would be very dangerous because there's all sorts of potential sacrifices in queen c3, pawn pushes. So it looks very dangerous for white's king. And to my eyes, white hasn't even started yet on attacking my king. Of course, it'd be better if I was already castled. But I still don't see the danger. And maybe there is danger, but I didn't see it during the game. So yeah, this was the end of the game. Rook a8. And he's just in deep trouble. He blocked with bishop a7. I took it. And let's see, did he resign? Yeah, he resigned on this move, and it just made one move after queen takes, queen takes. So this has been Zen Chess. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. And I plan on doing more instructional content in the future, so stay tuned. And I also stream on Twitch. My nickname is Zen Chess on Lichess, chess.com, Twitch, pretty much everywhere except for one place. So everybody have a nice day. Peace.